also welcome those who are joining us online from different countries and different parts of Ghana, and all of us who have made it here into the conference hall on day 2. Let us, as we usually do, start off with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we commit the continuation of this conference under your guidance and leadership. We pray that as we did yesterday, today will also give us ample opportunity to learn ways and methods and tools with which we can improve in our various fields. We thank you for all the speakers. We commit them into your hands that the words that they speak to us will impart knowledge and wisdom and add value. We thank you. This we have asked in your own holy name. Amen. I'd like to once more acknowledge our sponsors. We have sponsoring this program Enterprise Insurance, which is part of the Enterprise group of companies. Let's give them a hand of acknowledgement. I also want to acknowledge Agric Development Bank, ADB. Let's give them a hand. The official conference hotel is Chances Hotel in Ho. Let's give them a hand. And our caterers for the occasion are Fred's Kitchen Ho and Alon Restaurants and Events. Let's acknowledge them. We also want to acknowledge Ghana Water Company Limited for their sponsorship of this program. Just acknowledge them. Thank you. Okay, and now I want to invite up to the stage to introduce the chair for the occasion, Mrs. Victoria Watson, who's Head of Administration in the Office of the Vice Chancellor. Give it up for her.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm happy to introduce the chairperson for this session. The chair for this session is my father and the Pro-Vice Chancellor of this university. Before he became the Pro-Vice Chancellor, he was the Dean of the School of Medicine. He's a public health physician who is dedicated to fully providing quality health service to Ghanaians. He's also responsible for the development and running of PhD courses, supervisor training for academic faculty, and establishment of mentorship program for doctoral fellows at the College of Health Sciences, KNUST, with funding support from Wellcome Trust and later from Danida, Building Stronger Universities Initiative. In private life, he's known as Professor Harry Tabo, but as said yesterday, he is now Tobe Professor Tabo III. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, shall we put our hands together and welcome Tobe Professor Harry Tabo.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Victoria Watson. And good morning, everyone. I hope you remember that today is day two of the conference under the theme Forging Partnerships in Meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, the role of academia and research institutions. So we started yesterday and it went very well. I believe those of you who were here, you will attest to that fact that it went well. Today is day 2 and the sub-theme is Inclusive Partnership among Academia, Research, Health Sector, and Industry for human development and well-being. And for the plenary to begin with, we have Professor Atuama, who is a director of research and programs at the African Association of Universities, AAU. He's been the professor of environmental and sustainability science at the University of Cape Coast since August 2019. He was a director of the Directorate of Research, Innovation, and Consultancy at UCC from 2019 April to July 2022. He is an interdisciplinary scientist with deep interests in the natural and human dimensions of environment and health. He has served as a consultant to several organizations and governmental agencies, both locally and internationally. I was hoping that as I stood in the last minute or so, he would appear. But just last night, he was called to do something else. But he's here with us in spirit. So he sent his presentation, and the presentation will be done by Professor Margaret Japon, who is the director of Institute of Health Research and the convener of this research conference. So she's coming up, and I just want to say that at the end of her presentation, I will examine you. So please listen to her carefully. At the end, there will be a slide with some things on it, some questions that if you answer well, you'll get a prize. So if you want to get a prize, please listen attentively. So thank you very much, Professor Margaret Japon. Please take the podium.
Top date, Prof. I see Dr. Jokoto here. You see, I've said Prof, so it means one of these days you have to join us. Our colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when you have a colleague in a sister university and he's made hot, he makes you hot. So last night at about 8 p.m., I get slides that I have to prepare and come and talk about today. So I'll read the short message he sent. He said, I want to express my profound gratitude to the organizing committee for graciously inviting me to be part of this very important research conference. Circumstances have conspired to prevent me from being physically present today. But I'll contribute to the discussion by speaking on the topic, inclusive and equitable partnership among academia, government, and industry. So that is what I'm going to try to talk about. You hear me give a lot of examples from UHAS, and I'm sure if he were talking, he would have given a lot of examples from wherever he sits. So I'm standing in the big shoes of Professor Frederick Atu-Ama. So this is the outline of the presentation. We'll be looking at issues to do with the need to collaborate, equitable partnership, the quality and effectiveness of research partnership, funding as a critical driver of research partnerships and innovation. Then we'll take a look at 4 approaches to strengthening the equitable research partnership, current research partnerships in Africa, and we'll look at the way forward towards sustainable science and to see whether that will come to our rescue. So in terms of the imperative to collaborate, Basically, he's saying there's the need to collaborate. There's the need to look at global challenges, global solutions to global challenges, and then there's the need for a collective potential of African science. And in recent times, there have been a lot of discussions of the need for African scientists to stand up and not wait for others to do things for them. With the issue of global solutions for global challenges, there's the need for diversity, not just focusing in one line, but diversifying our approach to the way we handle the issue of collaboration. They talk about resource sharing, so we know that there's really some inequitable distribution of funding or resources, but it's important to be able to look at the need to share it in a way that is equitable for all. Capacity development, a lot of capacity is being built in the north. We are benefiting from some of the capacity building, but we need to be able to look at capacity building critically. Some call it capacity development, some say capacity building. At the end of the day, we want something sustainable. We need to look at scientific progress. We need to look at breakthroughs. We cannot just do business as usual. We need to look at the funding opportunities that exist. These days, a lot of the strategic plans and programs and roadmaps are looking at funding from local governments. They cannot depend only on international partners to fund. We must look at networks and equitable networks, networks that would enhance proper partnership and development, and the need to look at cultural exchange. We can no longer sit and allow our colleagues from the north to come and learn from here. We also need to be able to fund our students and our young faculty to go to other countries and learn from them. When it comes to the collective potential of African science, there's the need to ensure that the capacities have been built, and I've talked about that. We need to set our own agenda. We cannot wait for somebody to set the agendas for us. Today, the African Union and Africa CDC are rising up, and we are holding conferences where we are setting our own agenda, and we are finding our own funding to support those conferences, and rising to make sure that people know that Africa can do it. We need to showcase what we can do, and we need to make sure that our voice is heard in the global space. So how do equitable partnerships between academia, government, and industry look like? So British Council, and he's quoting from British Council, and he says, there's no generally recognized definition of an equitable partnership, and there's no set criteria for measuring how equitable international higher education partnerships are. There's power dynamics, whether we like it or not, between the North and the South. They seem to have been ahead of us. But if you look at Africa today, we've moved way ahead of where we were maybe 20 years ago. We need to look at issues of joint objective setting and delivery. Many of us sit in our institutions and somebody in Italy or in Germany says, I have a project, let's work on it. They've written the proposal already and they add your name to it because they want to work in your institution. That is not equitable. You need to insist that you want to be part of the proposal writing. Shared credibility. Sometimes you find out that there's a paper to be written and they say, you collected the data, you did not write scientifically, so your name cannot be on it. If we didn't collect the data, the paper could not be written. So we must negotiate some of these things. There are issues of trust. Do we trust the people that we are working with? Do they trust us? Can we trust them? We need to discuss and dialogue. Sometimes young scientists are afraid of dialoguing with some of the collaborations they have. They said, oh, they are bringing some money, so it's okay, whatever they say, let's do. You should not stand for that. We should dialogue with them. If it is not right, it is not right. Recently, we had to tell a certain funding organization, thank you, but no thank you, because the partnership and the discussion and the way in which we were going was not equitable. They said, because we live in the north, our living standards are higher than yours, but then we are doing the same work. So we said, no thank you. They were shocked, but we said, we cannot work with you, take your money. And they had to go. But they still come back and ask us to be on things with them. So you see, the respect has to be there. funding arrangements and dispersal of funds, shared governance and management. So we cannot have a situation where there's a team that is working and the governance is top-heavy from our colleagues in the north. We need to make sure that we also sit at that table. And the only way we can do it is to project ourselves as credible scientists. We cannot do mediocre science and expect to be put at the table. When your name appears on that document, they must ask, who is this? And when they search for you, they must find you in the global literature. So this is a challenge to all of us. Now he calls from Essence, and Essence is a group a group of funders that are trying to look at equitable use of funding. And on that tree, and usually when I talk about trees, I'm talking about problem identification and analysis. And when I saw this slide, I said, this is an interesting way of putting issues to do with equitable partnerships. So there are issues about assumptions where we look at enabling equity and unenabling issues. So issues of assumptions and misconceptions, and issues about understanding and knowledge. And some of the issues raised here, I talked about in the earlier slide. There's the need for us to engage. There's the need for us to be credible and to be able to put our issues forward. On this slide, he's quoting British Council 2021, which says that international higher education partnerships are beneficial for partners from the global south as well as partners from the global north. So each of us has a stake. Each of us has a role to play. Each of us would benefit from the partnership. So somebody cannot say they are helping you. You are helping them. And in recent times, I've been saying one of these days, the communities in which we work would say, we are tired. We don't want any research anymore. Leave us alone. Because every day there's some new research. Now, if we do not do the research, then somebody's money will be sitting there doing nothing. All right? So we need to partner properly. And we are looking at issues to do with higher education, improved higher education curriculum. UHAS has recently had a collaboration with Yonsei University where we are re-looking at our curricula. We know how to develop curricula, but enhancing it better. So there's a Korea-Ghana partnership. People have gone to Korea, people have come to Ghana. That is the kind of partnership we are looking at. We are looking at innovative ways of teaching, pedagogy, engaging with one another. We are looking at training for higher education staff. All of us need our capacity to be developed and built. We are looking at changes in which research is conducted. Yesterday, during the poster session, I was with the WHO representative, and somebody was presenting something and talking about the need to include interventions and engage people. And he said, we've thought of the interventions, and we are using implementation research approach. And then I said, hold on. You cannot talk about implementation research and say that you have thought about the interventions. You need to engage with the stakeholders. WHO representative has offered to pay for a stakeholder meeting for him to be able to engage them. So please go to the poster session. You may find some funder there who will be willing to fund an aspect of some of the work that you are doing. Let's move to that place. So that person has some funding now. There's mutual benefits for the communities in which we serve. And let's remember that whether we like it or not, the people in those communities are our relatives. They are our brothers, our sisters, our aunts. And we should be careful about the kinds of things that we accept to do in those communities. All right? Not because somebody is just giving you a few $100s, you just accept to do anything in any community. At the end of the day, it comes back to us. Issues about changes to institutional strategies. Sometimes things have to change. We must look at a more holistic response to challenge-led themes. So issues around the areas of research that we engaged in. Improved international reputation, and I cannot overemphasize that our reputation is key. If I put your name in Google, what will I find? What pictures will I find? What publications will I find? What is your credential, or what are your credentials? Scholarships and mobility stays, it shouldn't just be one way, it should be both ways. Scientific research outputs, we must see ourselves in those publications as primary authors, as lead authors, as corresponding authors. and then there'll be greater awareness of the challenges in the global. We must create greater awareness of the challenges in the global south. We have less than 10 years to attaining SDGs, and already there are discussions globally about whether we need to reprioritize the agendas that we have set. 2 weeks ago, I was arguing that there's no need for us to reset those priorities, because we know what we have to do. Those who need to bring the money should bring it. Those who need to do the work should do the work, and let's move forward. This reprioritizing, before you are aware, we'll be setting another set of targets to 2050, and every time we are resetting, let's get on and get the work done. So about fostering partnerships between academia, government, and industry, Prof is posing a number of fundamental questions that need to be asked. I'll allow you to look at these questions for 2 minutes, because those are the questions that Todme Prof is going to pose and for which he's going to give the prizes. So look at these questions for just a few minutes. I see people are taking pictures, you see, so that they can look at it properly. At the end of the day, we are going to have a discussion with these particular questions. So let's look now at sustainability of research partnerships and look at some of the indicators. I've touched on some of them. The relevance of the issue that you are researching into. Whose problem is it? Is it our problem, or is it their problem? Or is it our collective problem? How relevant is the issue? How did you decide on the topic that you want to research into? And when I teach, I tell the students, if you are working on malaria and you do not know the malaria strategic plan, then you cannot say you are doing your research on malaria, because you don't know what the program needs. So you need to understand what the program manager wants and needs. In NTD, it is in their master plan. So if you are doing NTD research and you don't know the NTD master plan, or you don't know the NTD roadmap 2030, then you have no business saying you are an NTD researcher. We need to be on the ground to ask the relevant questions and answer those questions so that it will make sense to the program people and the policy makers. I've talked about credibility, and I cannot overemphasize it. The work we do needs to be legitimate, and it must position us for use, for credible use, in country and outside the country. Many years ago, I was told by a district director of health services that the health service will run whether I do research or not, and we need to make ourselves relevant. So we cannot sit down and think, we have done the research, here is the report, use it. We need to make ourselves relevant. It is no news that funding is critical to quality, inclusive, and equitable research partnerships. And these are 10 ways by which funders can help make research partnerships more equitable. And usually when we talk about funders, we are thinking about somebody from the north. Funders can be people from our own countries. We have philanthropists here who can fund some of the research. Bill Gates is a philanthropist. There are several of them out there. Who are the African philanthropists? So 10 ways in which funders can make research partnerships more equitable. We need to prioritize, or they need to prioritize, inclusive agenda setting. And in Ghana, at some point, we spent quite a bit of time setting research agendas to match the medium-term health program. I don't know if that is still going on. But once that is done, then all the research should meet the needs of the health sector. There's the need to fund new research questions and value complementary indigenous skills and knowledge. 3, set the tone around expectations of equity with partnerships. Reward skilled project managers and team players. Look for equity beyond the project leaders. Check for equity in budgets and in all aspects of financial and research management. Continuously strengthen institutional capacity. Widen partnerships by supporting new research partnerships, looking beyond the usual suspects. There are some people who are always the ones who get the money, and sometimes they have to diversify. Invest for the long term. You cannot say you are doing capacity building, support a project or an institution for 5 years, and say that is it. By the end of 5 years, somebody has just finished their PhD. They need a lot to learn. So you need to continue the support to be able to ensure that that person can stand on their feet before you leave them. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. And last but not the least, collaborate and learn from other funders and agencies in the North and the South. And that is why I really appreciate the Essence thinking, because it brings all partners globally together to think through how they can be equitable in their partnership with organizations they fund. So now let's look at 4 approaches to strengthening equitable research partnerships. And this is taken from a document that the Essence Group has put together. I've talked about the Essence Group earlier on. So 4 areas to supporting equitable research partnerships: understanding the ecosystem, understanding the context, understanding the problems on the ground, building relationships, transformative processes, and the allocation of resources. And in the next couple of slides, I'm going to take each of them one by one, pose an approach, and then look at the possible solutions that have been put out there by the Essence Group. So the next 5-6 slides will be focused on this, maybe more than 5 or 6. So the first approach to support the research partnership ecosystem, 5 points are raised here. We need to expand the value mindset. Some of us are fixed in our minds, but we need to go beyond what we are thinking. We need to have a holistic approach to equity. We need to address issues of power imbalances and invest for the long term. And it is important for us to monitor, evaluate, and learn from our successes and our failures. Because we are always looking for money. We finish one, we put it aside, we go for the next one, we put it aside, and we are not thinking of what lessons can we learn from what we did previously to make the next one that we are going to do better. This table is difficult to see and is even more difficult to see on the screen. But when it comes to the issue of research partnership ecosystem, it looks at the funder, the research institution in the middle, and the researcher as an individual, okay? Each of us has a role to play. So when it comes to the issues of expanding the value mindset, and I raised those issues in the earlier slide, the funders have a lot of roles to play. So you see the funders are listed in all the cells. When it comes to the research institution, we are found in taking a holistic approach to equity, and we are found in addressing power imbalances. I'll just give one example for each. For the research institutions, we need to reflect, monitor, and reward the implementation and promotion of equitable partnership building practices across the research continuum and create an enabling environment that encourages researchers to strive for equity in all dealings with project partners. And I chose that particular one because we all come from research institutions, and it's important that we pay attention to it. We must train our scientists to be able to understand the need to negotiate for equity in terms of the research that we do and the engagements that we have with our partners. I'll go to the next one, the second approach to strengthen research relationships and research systems. And here, there's the need to prioritize relationship software, understand the context and cultures. And when you talk about understanding context, you touch a special spot in my heart. We need to understand the context. I have a problem with some of these tools that we use for psychological assessment. In Ghana, the term for somebody who has a psychological problem in any language is not the best. But then we take the English tools and translate them here and expect that the issues should fit, and they don't fit. So I keep telling my my colleagues in psychology, can you look at something that we can use here in Ghana? Adapt it. Don't just download it from the net and expect it to work. Sometimes you have a 5 points grade. Do you agree? Yes, no, somewhat agree, somewhat do not agree. In all our local languages, it is yes, no, maybe so. I, there be, ebia. There be, ekole. But so where do you fit the other two? Somewhat, somewhat not. That is English language. We are talking about our local languages. That is where we can do equitable discussion and say, it doesn't work in my country. We have only 3 points. When you do the analysis of those 5 points, you pull them together in the end. So why collect it when you are going to pull? For all you know, the people didn't understand the somewhat not so, and they just gave you any answer. And we are using it to plan for our country. Equitable partnership and engagement. We need to understand the context. We need to equip our researchers well. Some of us are young, we haven't been properly equipped, but sometimes we've been given work or engagements or assignments that we need to perform, and sometimes we are hanging with no one to guide us. We need to really make sure that we equip our researchers well. And we need to invest in research management. Since I came to UHAS, I've found the value of having a research manager. When I worked in Dodowa, you write the proposal, you do the financial reports. Those were the early days till you had the support. But when you have a research manager who pays attention to the deadline for calls, who pays attention to these are the administrative forms that need to be filled, so you don't bother your head about those things. So I'm charging all our leaders of our research institutions to invest in research managers because they make a lot of difference. It's a whole profession on its own, and people need to be trained to be able to manage it. They'll help with your budgeting, negotiating MOUs, doing all kinds of things. It makes a lot of difference. Yesterday, our research manager was praised by VC here. Yes. So when it comes to some recommendations on the second approach, of course, there are recommendations for funders. The second approach, to remind you, is strengthening research relationships. And here you have the funders and the research institutions that have a greater role to play. I'll just read one when it comes to equipping researchers. It says, acknowledge the impact of different research and political contexts and adopt a systems approach to enhancing research capacities at individual institutions and ecosystems levels. We need to adapt a proper system, a system that is holistic, so that when somebody comes into the country, they know that I cannot go and misbehave in Kintampo and then go to Dodowa and say we want to work there. There's a group that went to mess up in some institution, and then they came to us to work with us. And they didn't know that one of us had heard about that story, and we threw the issue at them, and they were surprised. There's another group that we said bye-bye to. If we are strong in our partnership, then when somebody goes to mess up somewhere and runs away to another place, we should also be able to tell them that because you did not work well with our partners, we will not work well with you. And it will make people sit up on their toes. I can say this because I've gone through the mail, and I'm free to say anything. But as a young researcher, you have to choose your words well. When it comes to still strengthening of research relationships, you can tell that the onus is on our research institutions. We really need to strengthen ourselves so that when somebody talks about your institution, they know that, yes, this is a credible institution. Let's go to the third approach, budget for partnership building. We should plan for partnerships when calling for proposals. And I think this goes particularly to the funders. And some of our institutions also have funding from some of these funding organizations to be able to call for proposals. We have a system like that where we have set up a research fund. We put out calls for proposals. We have them assessed, and we give funding to our faculty and our PhD students. They need to give direct funding to low middle income countries, institutions, and researchers. And I'm happy to note that the EDCTP is doing that. In fact, they did that in EDCTP 2. 2 weeks ago in Paris, we are finding out that they appear to be moving in the other direction again. And some of us have started shouting. If you have an EDCTP 3 grant, you need to have a northern institution to hold the grant. And we are saying that EDCTP has moved from that. We are not going in that direction. In EDCTP 2, they give funding to the southern institution, and you would outsource the northern institution. And UHAS has been benefiting from some of that. So there's a call for funding to go directly to our institutions in the south, but we need to have the capacity to manage the funds. The fact that the funds have come into our institution doesn't mean that we should use it anyhow. And we need to follow up on funding and support for research outputs. And of course, the recommendations again, and you can see from the description I gave, a lot of it goes to the funders and the research institutions, and not so much to the individual researchers. This is institution by institution. We'll make these slides available, don't worry, and then you can have all the details. The fourth approach, there's a need to review governance arrangements and revisit the terms of research. And once again, some of the recommendations, for most of them go to the research institutions and the funding organizations. We need to pay attention to some of these things. So what are some of the current initiatives that reflect partnerships between government, academia, and industry in Africa? 6 pathways have been listed. Governmental and intergovernmental bodies need to have a role. We need higher education institutions, individual international funders, international funding consortia, scientific granting councils in Africa, and to date, I think we just have 1 or so in South Africa. So EDCTP 3 says that even when they give the funding, South Africa is the one, if you are an African institution, that will receive on your behalf and then disperse to you. The funding goes to the northern institution. If you are a southern institution, it will go to South Africa before they disperse to you. We are still fighting that, and we hope that we'll be able to fight it successfully. The other pathway is the international scientific organizations. But I think that we need to add a 7th one, which is the local African institutions getting funding to be able to make sure that things work. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, we have made significant gains through a lot of these initiatives that have been talked about. However, Ghana and other African countries must lead the way by investing substantial funds in research and innovation. We've signed on all the declarations. We've declared that we want to give 1% of GOG to research. If that happened, we wouldn't go begging cap in hand for tiny amounts of money, $10,000, $20,000, and we are struggling to be able to get that. If our countries invested in some of our research, we'll be able to do things that met our need without all those conditions that come with it. But it doesn't mean that because our governments have given us the money, we should use it anyhow. We should use it judiciously. There's immense opportunity to coordinate all of the initiatives to synergize interventions and optimize policy outcomes over time. And yesterday, Dr. Jokoto was talking about how research results have helped impact on policy and implementation in the health sector. And this is very critical for all of us. So the question is, can sustainable science be a glue for coordinating all these initiatives that we have talked about? Sustainable science meaning research and education that results in new knowledge, technology, innovation, and holistic understanding which allows societies to better address global and local sustainable challenges. It is about wicked problems, wicked in quotes. Says truly successful sustainable science does not target individual sustainability challenges alone, but rather takes into account their character as wicked problems to ensure consideration of the interdependence of challenges, their complexity, and potential and reinforcement as well as the geographical and temporal context, cultural differences, and inherent conflicts of goals and interests. Principles of sustainable science according to UNESCO, it says that sustainable science is interdependent, it is complex, and mutually reinforcing in character. It is not as simple as we see it. If you remember the previous slides, it was talking about social context, it was talking about planetary issues. It is complex, it's not as simple as we see it. For science to be sustainable, we need to engage. The next principle is that knowledge is necessary to define and achieve sustainability. Knowledge is necessary to define and achieve sustainability. And the next principle, in addition to generating knowledge, sustainability science focuses on solving problems, understanding dilemmas and conflicts of goals and interests. And all of these issues go back to the issue of understanding the context, understanding the problem, defining the problem, and making sure that it works in our context. And then it also talks about cooperation between the natural and the social sciences. In UHAS, we pride ourselves in doing multidisciplinary research. And these days, in global health and with international and implementation research, there's no way you can sit in your corner and say that you are making it. You need to partner with others, because we are dealing with a human being who is complex, and the human being is not only made up of tuberculosis. The human being is not only made out of cholera. That human being comes from a cultural context. That human being has economic circumstances that need to be dealt with. And so we need to work mutually together. There must be cooperation. Sustainability science is based on both academic freedom and academic responsibility. And I have stressed on academic responsibility earlier on. We must be responsible. We must do credible science. Last but not the least, it requires important new capacities of individual scientists. We need to develop ourselves. You cannot just say that I have a PhD, so I'm fine. There are so many short courses that are ongoing that we can register with, that we can learn from, so that when you stand up, you can talk like everybody else, or even better. These days, there's AI. AI can be good, it can be bad. Some of us don't even want to go near it. But the things that it is doing positively, you need to engage with some of those tools. And discourage the ones where you are writing a paper and you say, Madam AI, I want to write a paper on ABCD. Give me ideas. And then it gives it to you, and then you take it and you. These days, there are softwares that can catch you, so be careful. Be careful. So what is your role in all of these initiatives? I've talked a lot, I've said a lot of things. Some of the things have pinched us, some of them haven't pinched us. What is your role in all of these initiatives? Thank you very much for your attention. I'm putting Toby's questions up here, and he will award a prize. Now that he's a new king, he has a lot of resources.
I didn't hear the clap loud enough. You know why you should clap? She has done it as if she thought of it many days, many months ago. Let's clap again for her. Thank you very much, Professor Margaret Japon. What are the questions? It's the questions they want to see, not me. So, I have them here. It's not coming out. So the first question is, what steps can academia, government, and industry take to ensure that relationships are equitable? The word I heard often today is equity. And I also learned that equity is not just about sharing money. What else did you hear? It's not just about sharing money. There was something also about equity. What did you hear? I can see Dr. Wachiadom nodding her head. I don't know whether she wants to say something. You want to say something, right? Good. Please, where's the mic? So whilst she's thinking of, she's going to answer the first question or say something about it, can somebody be thinking about the second question?
My name is Emily Boachiyadom. So my thoughts on the first question, from what Toby asked, what really struck me during Prof. Japon's lecture was about being part of the decision making right from the beginning, being part of the proposal stage, and actually making an input, not simply accepting everything that comes from the other end. I'm really wondering how we can truly implement it, because sometimes I'm looking at academia, government, and industry, and sometimes for us here in academia, it may have been something that would have been negotiated by the government. And so by the time it gets to us, it has already gone beyond the point of decision taking. How do we ask for a seat at that table, even for ones that do not directly involve us? If I can put it so, at those stages. So unfortunately, Togwe, I've added another question. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody who can help her with that? From SAS, right? All right. Introduce yourself. And
my name is Ajwa Banson, and I'm with her on what struck me, and that it seems it's quite obvious, but it's today that I actually learned you don't just have to take what the funder is bringing. And I think that is one of the, should I say, the first step is education, especially, in fact, across board, because as a person in academia, I have now learned that I have, should I say, pride or dignity in a way, that when I'm going to apply for a grant, or if someone is reaching out for collaboration, that it's not okay that the person has said, oh, it's all ready, all you just have to do is add the name. Wow, that's such a great thing for me. You know, I don't even have to do any work. It's rather inequitable. I should say that I have things to offer and that. And I think with the government aspect might be a bit more difficult, in my opinion, compared to the academia, because there's a general perception among many Ghanaians, I have that as well, that it seems we see decisions and we see our governments to be like cup in hand. Most people, yes, most people have that perception. So if that's how, I don't know whether that's how the decisions on, but that's how the ordinary person thinks it goes on. So maybe even people that go to the table need this kind of education as well. So I think education is like the first step. Thank you.
thank you. Any more? Yeah, yes. Dr. Tidani, right? Tidana. Atindana. Okay.
My name is John Inso Atendana. When Prof was speaking, what really struck me a lot is that I think we need to do a lot of talking, and we should not do things like you are in your corner doing your things and the other person in the corner doing the other things. For example, if we take the academia and you also take the government and also the industry, there's a need for us to have a lot of talking. If we have a lot of talking, then it will help us to identify what are the things that we need to do so that at the end of the day, we will see that it's equitable. So that if we talk, it will help us to know. Because if we don't talk, and then each person is doing his own thing in one corner, it will be difficult for us to be able to know what is equitable in what we want to do. That's what I think. Thank you.
By talking, I think you are saying that you need to be part of what is going on. Right. So he's not saying you should just be talking. Otherwise, we will mistake you for something else. Right.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Maxwell Dalaba. I'm so happy with regards to equity. As we all know, equity is more about fairness and taking into consideration the need. Though generally we have a lot of inequalities in our system, that if we really don't sit up and be proactive, they will definitely will not be able to address issue of inequity. For instance, with regards to admissions, do we add the component of equity in it? Some people are coming from grade A schools, some are coming from grade B schools. Do we add that with regards to our admissions? Some people are coming from the rural settings, some are coming from urban settings. Do we add that in our admissions? So it's not only about the schooling, but other resource allocations. Most often it's just one cap fits all, which is not a situation. So we really need to let policymakers understand the importance of equity, that if they are going to redisperse resources, they need to think about the gaps, that people need different things at different times. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for that one, I'll say yes. For my university here and other universities, they do that. But what we can say is that probably it's not reaching far enough. But yes, there are the policies to do that. So even in UHAS here, we have that policy. But you realize that you have thousands apply. And so it's as if we don't have it, but we do. Most universities in Ghana, yes, have that. But as you said, we have to do more. And I agree with that. Equity, I'm sure we've dealt with that. You still want to say something about equity? Right. One point also that came up is research one. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. So I wanted to say that when it comes to collaboration, we know most of the time we all have our interest. Just like Prof. Jampo mentioned, the funder has their interest, government has its own interest, academia has their interest. So one of the things that really help is to manage conflict of interest and have clear guidelines to guide the collaboration. Make sure that we are meeting each other halfway and someone is not benefiting more than the other person. I think it's one of the steps to ensure equity. Thank you.
Right. Yes, there's a...
Thank you very much for this very informative session. I would like to add that we are thinking very similarly how to join forces together to find or to develop equitable partnership. Because from my perspective, I think that only partnership that is mutually beneficial is partnership that will last long. And in order to do that, my institution at McGill, my group, we develop equitable tool for developing equitable partnership in global health. with the idea with a very clear steps, how to set the stage for equitable partnership. As it's important at the beginning to sit with the partners and to define if you are on the same page, all of you, and to discuss important points in order to avoid certain challenges in the future. For example, regarding publications, regarding what is considered as benefits. Maybe what is considered for as a benefits for Global North is not similar what is considerable for Global South. So in order to have successful and equitable partnership, it's crucial to have those conversations at the beginning.
Thank you very much. So, yes, I want us to move on to research management. How we do with time? All right, so with research management, during the talk, Prof made us aware that research management is key. You can't just sit somewhere hiding and be doing things all by yourself. There's need for research management. There's need for you to think about that carefully. The other point I noted here is being visible and heard. And she gave us how you can be visible and be heard. You must be visible. And you know how, if you have to be visible, how do you become visible? Anybody? How do you become visible? And when you are visible, what's the result? Yes, please. I have 5 minutes, so you have 1 minute.
Dinah Sena Aute.
Yes.
You can be visible through writing,
Yeah.
and also talking to the people that matters.
And also being part of this conference and making a contribution as you are doing. Yes, who has something else to say?
Yes, I'd like to add that, when you do the writing, letting it be where visibility counts in terms of where your dissemination reaches is important. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. So, this morning we've heard from Prof. Ama through Prof. Japan. It's as if he was here by himself. And we've heard about research partnership and how that can work. It is important, it is beneficial, and it's something we all have to work towards. The other point that we have noted also is the fact that we need to look at the funders also. The funders, they have an interest. They have an interest, and so when you are going for funding, you need to think about that. Funders normally would want you to do something that they want. But that is again where you have to come in and negotiate. And we've heard about all of that. The other thing I noted is that we have programs, malaria program, HIV, and all of that. So if you are in a university or a research center, you can't just get up and be doing research, thinking that when you are done, you're going to give them the result. No, it doesn't work like that. You need to get them, be part of the thinking, trying to develop the research and all of that. It is only then that when you have the results, they will sit and listen to you. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being part of this, and I believe that what we've heard, we will try and work with it. Thank you.
Shall we do it again for Toby Professor? Thank you very much, Toby Professor Thabo the Third. Few announcements. We are not coming back here. Right from here, we are moving into the concurrent sessions 1, 2, and 3. The first session will be on gender, reproductive, maternal, and child health at the council chamber, and then it will be moderated by Professor Peter Adatara. The second session at IAC training room, moderated by Professor Francis Zotor on nutrition. And then the third session, moderated by Dr. Oko Kwao on infectious and neglected tropical diseases at IAC conference room. So right from here, we are all moving into the 3 that we have mentioned. From there, we'll take our snack and then continue with the 4th and 5th. After the 4th and 5th, we'll go for our lunch and then continue with the 6th and 7th. Please find one of the topics that is interested for you and then join them. Okay, so we are moving right from here. Thank you. So Professor Elvis Takan will be in the room for Professor Zotor. So it's not Professor Zotor, it is Professor Elvis Takan. Thank you very much. So shall we move?